When we first got here, it was actually me, Dad, and my grandpa, and nobody knew a word of English besides me because I was taught that in school, obviously, because it's a national language, it's a worldwide language, and it was kind of interesting getting around for the first month or so, and then we moved back. We went back to clean up more of our stuff that we had to get rid of there, but. Yeah, then I went to high school here at BGM for a couple of years, and then we went to college, NICC, Northeast Iowa Community College for dairy science, and that's when I met Catherine. So
I became a dairy princess when I was a senior in high school. I served my term as Dodge County Dairy Princess before moving on to Northeast Iowa Community College, where I met Joris and went to school for dairy science and technology.
After college, me and Catherine moved back to the farm. We live about a mile from here.
People assume that I grew up on a farm, especially a dairy farm. My grandparents on my mom's side dairy farmed until the 80s and then sold the cattle in the buyout. The cattle went to Canada, and my grandpa just continued to row crop farm and then eventually started raising beef cattle as well. So both my parents grew up on farms, but I was raised in town. Lived in an apartment building, and when I hit high school, I had a friend who lived out in the country, and we convinced her brother-in-law that we should buy goats. So there I was living in town in an apartment building, and I owned goats. And it wasn't long after that I also owned some dairy cattle. And then I started. So between my time as a dairy princess, being active in my local FFA chapter, and then along with being in the dairy science club at college, we were very active in community service, anywhere from the local level up to state levels, and I always loved participating at Breakfast on the Farm with FFA, and then also our college hosts one every year. And I really had the dream that someday we would be able to bring it here, but we just don't exactly have the space. So fast forward to 2020, and everybody's got cabin fever. We are just so tired of sitting in our houses. I'm locked inside with 4 kids. No, I didn't have 4 at that time. 3 kids at that time. And I decided, I was inspired based off of my experience with Breakfast on the Farm, but also there was a local Ruritan's club in town that was basically arranging these waving parades that for the most part they were going by the nursing home and then through town, and it was just a way for people to get together and maintain that safe distance while doing something that wasn't sitting on the couch. So I was inspired by that aspect, and then combine that with the dairy drive-through. Joris's sister Diwicha, she's a pastry chef, and she was spending her quarantine time here because she was living in Chicago at the time. So she was just laid off from work. So she was helping on the dairy. I'm like, hey, we can call up, we can get milk donated, you can make a bunch of cookies, and we can do this little parade right through the barn. And the original plan was to just go through one of the barns, but then everybody got so excited. My father-in-law was like, not just one, we're going through both. So we had people manning the gates to open the gates and let people through, and we just did this big loop, and every year it's just gotten a little bigger, not only in what we're able to give to the community and what they donate back to us, that we have been able to bless different areas. Our first year went to playground updates to help make the local playground at the school more handicap accessible, because there's at least 2 kids in the elementary that were in wheelchairs. The second year we donated to the food pantry. The third year went to funeral funds. And then this last year we went and donated to our local fire departments after they helped us put out a pretty big fire on the machine shed. So all cows were safe and well, but we just lost material things. Here from college, I had full intentions of working on the dairy too, but Joris was already working 13-hour days.
Start the day around 6 o'clock or so. start by feeding cows. Get done with that around 8:30 or so. Go home, eat some breakfast quick. Come back and start doing odd end things. Like right now we're replacing freestalls or going to the field, do field work or fix stuff in the machine shed, get stuff ready for fall or spring or haul sand and bed up the freestall barn basically. And
There's never not work to be done.
always something to be done. And then around lunchtime, go home, eat lunch quick, come back and do the same thing again. Work on odd things. Take plastic off the bunker, stuff like that, with tires and plastic. And then around 4 o'clock, 4:30, start mixing the afternoon feed. And then get that done around 6 o'clock. And then go home around 7.
And that's a lot with one kid. Then along came the second, the third, and the fourth. So I had to find a way to find something for me to do that didn't have a huge time commitment, had some flexibility, but ideally still involved agriculture. So I joined my local county farm bureau board, and I've had been blessed with opportunities through them to be able to talk about agriculture as a whole to the community, along with doing things like talking to my legislators at county, states, and even been on 2 trips to Washington, D.C. to talk to my legislators up there about issues in agriculture. And it is one of those things that Joris is starting to become quite passionate about himself, because Farm Bureau and Midwest Dairy, all these promotion groups within agriculture are not something that exists in the Netherlands. So when it comes to issues that the government is trying to implement on farms, the farmers are too busy farming. They don't always have the opportunity to share their voice and their opinions and concerns with how it might affect them, and not only them, but the food chain.
Back on the last 15 years, kind of crazy how things have progressed and changed and all that stuff. I mean, when we got here, there was only 230 cows, and now there's 1,500, 1,600 cows. And starting in a couple weeks, we'll be building some heifer facilities to raise all our own young stock. So that'll be exciting, I think, to take that into our own hands. So